let's talk about AI a little bit. I mean, how can you not? It's the biggest trend in it's not even just family office. It's just one of the biggest technology trends, period. AI hype in reality. How should family offices be thinking about AI? What should they do to prepare for adopting AI? And, you know, where are we at in the AI journey?
So I've talked about this before, and at least throwing out the baseball metaphor, right? So where are we? Are we in the first inning? Are we in the third inning? Are we in the seventh inning when it comes to AI? I tend to like to think we're in batting practice. We're in the warm up. We're getting started, at least from a family office standpoint. And the reason why I say that is because it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You have fintech providers that are already embedding AI into their platforms. It's happening. It's sort of like the cloud conversation back in the on-prem to cloud conversation back on the day. A lot of family offices were focused on-prem. That's where they thought the greatest security was. But they were already going to the cloud because the fintech providers were stopping supporting the on-prem versions. Nowadays, not many are doing that. So they've sort of brought them there. I think the fintech providers are going to bring the family offices to AI. It's just a matter, but it's going to be done embedded within certain business applications, right? So it's going to be embedded within your general ledger. It's going to be embedded within your alternatives data aggregator. It's going to be embedded within your performance reporting solution. And you're going to be able to drive really great insights within the data that's in each of those systems. But it's not necessarily going to be pervasive across all business applications, unless maybe you do go the business or you go that data warehouse route. So why do I say that we are in batting practice? Because it's happening, but there's a lot of education that needs to be done. And there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done prior to really being able to leverage that AI just for business process improvement and efficiency purposes. So I think there's education that needs to be done, not only to family members, but the family office executives in terms of really what is AI? How does it differ from robotics process automation? What are the different what are the different types of AI, right? Are we talking about generative AI or something else? What are going to be the pros and cons and the challenges associated with that? When is it safe to use it, right? Like if I'm in a family office, can I use ChatGPT?
Okay.
Maybe. But I wouldn't put my client information in there. I wouldn't put
that would be loading up the portfolio, right?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of education that needs to be done in terms of what are the benefits, what are the challenges of AI, and then when should we be using it? I've heard instances of where family office executives prepare a really good performance report, send that to the family and to members of the rising gen, and maybe they haven't necessarily engaged in conversations with the rising gen to really kind of assess their financial literacy or sort of their sophistication. And you have the rising gen members putting that into ChatGPT to better understand it, to ask the questions that they want to ask the family office staff. So the education goes both ways, not only educating the family office teams, but educating the family members on really what data is safe to put into AI platforms and what data is not safe. And then from there, I think there's work to be done on drafting, just like any good technology use policy within a family office, AI use policies. So that way, those in the office really know what can be done and what the family's philosophy about AI, data security, data privacy is. And then they can go from there. And then I think that's AI is going to be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's a great point. They really should get some policies in place because people are going to experiment with it, right? They're going to start using it with it, start playing with it, and they may not be using it in the way that you would be the safest. Such as the example of loading up the portfolio to get some insights on ChatGPT, right?
Oh, for sure. And shadow AI usage is happening, right? So even if you limit their ability to get access to ChatGPT or other platforms on their work laptop, people got phones, they've got personal devices. People are using ChatGPT or other AI platforms one way or another. So I think really just trying to tackle that head on is going to be important for family offices. So that way their employees know what's expected of them and what's at risk if maybe they tend not to follow that. The other, I think, is just data preparation, right? If you're going to be using AI to derive insights off of your data, you really need to make sure your data is clean. So I think there's a broader data strategy and data governance conversation that needs to happen prior to really deploying AI, right? So how clean is our data? Who has access to our data? Where is our data stored? Where should our data be stored? Because depending on where you're storing that and how clean it is, AI may or may not be able to access it, right? Especially if it's only embedded in point solutions. So I think there's a broader conversation in terms of holistically taking a look at your data and going through that kind of data storage, data retention, data access rights, and permissions management exercise prior to really wanting to deploy AI within your office.
That's a great point. I mean, the two are related, right? AI is not going to give you the results that you want if you don't have your data clean and accessible and secure. I think batting practice. I like to think that that saying that the future's here is just not evenly distributed. That, as you said, that there are vendors out there that are embedding AI capabilities into their solutions today, which is a great way to do it. It's a secure way, I think, especially around alternative investments, around unlocking unstructured data, converting that into structured information, almost eliminating that first low value, first mile type of data ag is happening today, which is great. It's too long. These family offices spend too much time just trying to get data out of PDF documents, and AI seems great for that. I think in the investment process too, you're seeing with agentic AI, it's amazing some of the capabilities that are out there today. That is not, something that's talk about a futurist. Like these applications are in place today. They're providing real value today,
Yep.
and I think it's family offices should become educated on it. Right? What are the policies? How do I protect myself? But then what are the capabilities, and how do I modernize? Because I just think like the capabilities and the efficiencies they're just too great to be able to ignore. And I think your example of cloud migration was it is that kind of wave, and unfortunately or fortunately it took COVID to be able to really get those family offices that migrate to the cloud. In this case, I think it's one of those things where you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody that's using AI.
Yep.
And I think it's imperative of family offices to get educated, to find ways in which they can even experiment with those capabilities in a secure way, because there's so much efficiency that's to be had. So, what is next with AI? Given that we're in batting practice, when do we take the field, and what do you see as some of the developments that are out there?
So you touched on, I think agentic AI is probably next. And I said batting practice, like that's a broad generalization, right? Like there are certainly some that are in inning 2, certainly some that are in inning 4. But I think broadly as an industry, we're still very much in that warm up stage, and it's rapidly approaching because the fintech providers are bringing us there. I think immediate next up is better leveraging Gen AI, right? So that's to derive the insights based on the underlying data, or even to use like Copilot to record meeting minutes and meetings
Right.
that are happening right now. Like that's a great efficiency saver. Maybe I don't need my executive assistant. Maybe I don't need my business analyst on every single call taking notes, when I can use something like a Copilot to really do that on my vendor diligence or my board meetings that I'm attending. It can really just streamline that. I think that's a good way to kind of dip your toes into the water and get that first at bat. I think that is a way to get people starting to be comfortable with it. But in terms of what do I think is more broadly kind of next on the horizon, I do think it is that agentic AI, because that's really where you're using AI to really kind of automate process and begin to make decisions. But I think when you begin to go that route, you really need to have trust in AI, and you really need to understand the process and the data that is going to be deriving those decisions, because at that point, you're automating it. You might still have human in the loop to sort of review what's been done, but maybe you want to use that to really initiate the workflows around client onboarding, or maybe you really want to use that to really go through the process of setting up your entities and the chart of accounts with those entities, and really maybe beginning to get that structure in place across your business applications. Maybe you want to do it to accelerate the bank reconciliation process, which I mean, realistically is already sort of being done within systems nowadays from an automation standpoint, but there can certainly be improvement there in terms of matching unreconciled expenses to the banks. So I think there's a lot of benefits that agentic AI can do in terms of just sort of automating workflows and beginning to make those lower level decisions. I think it's going to be a while before we're relying on agentic AI to really make recommendations around maybe portfolio rebalancing and then automatically deploy that. So maybe start small is what I would say when it comes to that type of AI.
Yeah, I think that those are all good points. I think agentic AI is the next frontier. I think you're seeing obviously that the note taking capabilities are really good. I mean, what it captures and how it captures it uh, are pretty spot on. And then if you have a meeting with a family member and there are takeaways that come from that family member, obviously that those notes get automatically put into the CRM. The task can be automatically kicked off and initiated. An AI agent isn't gonna have something fall through the cracks. It doesn't stop until that task is completed. Where sometimes I think the human side, you get busy. Sometimes things can fall through the cracks. I do think that, to your point too, that the decision making, I think that the human in the loop, it's going to be a long time before really, you know, AI should be at the reins when it comes to actually making decisions on portfolios or other matters. But the other thing I think too, in terms of kind of condensing large amounts of information, like, what happened with the portfolio over the quarter, like getting that first draft and be able to see that information that can make you remind you of things that you forgot about that happened maybe earlier in the quarter, and to be able to kind of customize the communication experiences per person or generation. AI can be good at that, so it can actually even help with communication. So that there's a ton that there's happening on that front.